Hi, I'm Chucky.
Chucky, 8 crazy anatomical facts about the possessed doll. Hi, this is Simon Canish and welcome to another Marvelous Videos. Before we get into the transformation of Chucky over the years, let me just take a moment to appreciate how an innocent looking doll like Chucky can become so murderous that it would send shivers down the spines of folks like the Annabelle doll or maybe even Megan. The doll was once a regular toy that became the hellish abode of the soul of a serial killer named Charles Lee Ray, whose name is similar to the mid-20th century serial killer Charles Raymond Starkweather, who is also known to have killed at least 21 people. But I'm digressing. So after Charles's soul got transferred into the doll, it became a murder machine and a horror icon like no other. Over the course of several films, Chucky has performed wonderful feats like making doll babies and resurrecting multiple times after dying in the most brutal ways. This guy even has all the markings of a psychopathic AI that can possess machines. So in this video, we will explore the top 8 startling facts about Chucky, the serial killer doll. Before we go into our explanation, we do have a very small request. If you like our content, then please support us by subscribing to our channel. This is a small click for you, but for us, it means a lot. Thank you, and let's begin.
And you have a date with death.
What does Chucky look like? Well, Chucky has become an iconic part of the horror genre, and anything from his hair to his clothing is sufficient to remind us of who he is. As far as his head is concerned, the doll has got his large round face with 2 bulging eyes, a long thin nose and a wide grin. But I guess my favourite thing about Chucky is the variety of crazy hairstyles that Chucky wears. Throughout the franchise, Chucky has undergone several changes, from his hair to his attire. But in the first film, Chucky is about 2.5 feet tall. He's got freckles and blue eyes and wears a shirt with a blue, red and green stripes on it. Oh yeah, and I almost forgot the good guy logo on his clothes. Chucky's appearances remain more or less the same in the first 3 films. Having said that, Chucky goes through several different physical changes throughout these 3 films because of the way he is finished off at the 3 climaxes. In the first movie, he's burnt alive, which leaves his skin black and most of his hair disappears. Furthermore, he even has his lips burnt down. In the second film, Chucky chases Andy, but the boy's foster sister named Kyle slams a door on Chucky's hand. And although he manages to free his arm from the door, he ended up losing his hand. But Chucky has this ingenious idea of replacing his lost hand with a knife. But that doesn't last for long because he loses his legs as well before Kyle douses the doll with molten plastic. Now, by now Chucky looks hideously ugly and Kyle resorts to shoving an air tube into his mouth, blowing up his head until it exploded. I must admit this was one of the more satisfying of all Chucky's deaths, but I believe the most important death sequence of Chucky came in the 1991 film Child's Play 3, in which half of Chucky's face is sliced off and we get to see the underlying muscles and bloody flesh under his skin, and not just weird human-like organs as seen in the previous films. So how did a doll develop a muscular and fleshy body? Well, Chucky had spent so much time as a doll that he started to grow human physical traits like bushy eyebrows, muscles, and blood. During the course of the 3 movies, Chucky's primary ambition was to get himself a human body that he could possess. But in the 5th movie, he embraces what he had become. But the most phenomenal change that Chucky undergoes comes in the 4th film, Bride of Chucky. So in the 3rd film, Chucky died after being thrown into a shredder. So Chucky's ex-girlfriend Tiffany bribes a cop to retrieve whatever remained of him. She stitches up these body parts, leaving long scars across his face. Now, this new look has become a staple in the future versions of Chucky. In The Seed of Chucky, he has much brighter and longer hair. However, in the next film, Chucky wears fake skin to hide his scars, but it is revealed later in the movie. And of course, there are the 2017 film Cult of Chucky, which has several different Chuckies. While most of these dolls are chubbier than the original, they have varying traits. For instance, one of the dolls has a missing arm, while another has a buzz cut. How is it that Chucky has human organs? So the short and oversimplified answer to this question is that all the Chucky dolls get human organs as soon as they become possessed. However, this explanation raises more questions than it answers. It was made quite clear in the initial films that Chucky needed to possess someone soon enough, or he would be forever trapped inside the doll, created by a voodoo practitioner. The doll received the ability to transfer its soul from one doll to another, and while that explains why Chucky can kill and has a dark sense of humor, it doesn't say how exactly Chucky receives the strength of a full-grown man, or how he is capable of speech. If we go by voodoo magic, the most prominent aspect, at least as far as Hollywood is concerned, is that voodoo is used to create dolls without organs that serve as a replica of a human. Alternatively, voodoo dolls can be used as conduits that capture the spirit of the dead. I believe director Tom Holland's 1988 original tried to play with these two notions. That's why Chucky is a doll that is trapped in the soul of a wrongdoer, but at the same time, it also develops organs because the soul has existed for far too long inside the doll. So in other doll movies such as The Conjuring, Annabelle, it doesn't really get any human organs. I mean, hell, she can't even speak, but Chucky can. Assuming that the first doll was made in 1988 when dolls were not really made with advanced technology, Chucky probably developed vocal cords and stuff like that. Likewise, Chucky also developed other human parts like reproductive organs, and even Chucky's bride had reproductive organs. It's highly unlikely that Chucky's body was transplanted with human organs, and in the dark chance that they were, the organs must have come from a little child of 2 or maybe 3, which makes Chucky way more horrific than he currently is. Unfortunately, the lore behind Chucky is not so detailed to give a definite answer to exactly how Chucky gets his human organs, and so we can only really speculate.
I love you.
Can Chucky reproduce? First, it is more important to establish whether Chucky is a man or a machine. Now, this iconic horror icon is most certainly an animatronic doll that is essentially a battery-powered machine. I mean, that's how Andy's mother became suspicious of Chucky, right? Chucky was functioning even when his battery should have been discharged. But on the other hand, Chucky developed human physical traits such as blood, muscles, speech, etc., which made him more human than a machine-like. But in the fourth movie, something happens that settles the debate and establishes that although Chucky is a doll on the outside, he's more human than probably any other possessed dolls that we've seen in movies. But what does he do? Chucky's shredded remains from the third film were taken to a secret evidence locker by Chucky's ex-girlfriend, Tiffany. She bribes a cop to get hold of these body parts. She sews the doll back and resurrects him using voodoo. And although Chucky showed signs that he was back, the progress was slow and gradual. To expedite the resurrection, she used a recent flame named Damien. Tiffany clearly had little to no regard for Damien, lets him believe that she was going to fire up his night. She handcuffs him and she notices Chucky nearby. Damien tells Tiffany how she was obsessed with the stupid doll and goes on to insult Chucky's manhood. This enraged Chucky and he becomes full back to life and kills Damien. I guess on a psychological level, most men are rather conscious of their size. And no matter how many girls say that their size doesn't matter, most men believe otherwise. Nevertheless, one thing leads to another and Chucky and Tiffany have a fallout. Tiffany locks him up and mocks him by giving him a bride doll. Later, our little evil guy kills Tiffany and transfers her soul into the bride doll. But the couple did not wish to live as dolls and wanted to transfer their souls into humans. So Chucky and Tiffany deceive a young couple into taking them into the cemetery at Hackensack, where Chucky's body was buried. It was during this trip that Chucky felt true love for Tiffany. Well, apparently because she was creative in murdering people. He immediately proposed to her and the two of them did it the old-fashioned way. Here it is revealed how Chucky and Tiffany possessed the required reproductive organs, both external and internal. I mean, Chucky's little thing could also produce the white elixir of life. Yeah, I know. YouTube monetization is a witch. Nevertheless, these parts are all made of rubber instead of real flesh. So the result of their business is seen in the climax of the film where Tiffany is in labor. And not just that, she gives birth to a healthy doll baby, or Chucky Jr. When Chucky learns about the baby, he loses his mind and faints. So yeah, Chucky can reproduce, at least with another doll, but it is uncertain if he can do it with humans. Having said that, the fact that he can impregnate another, and that is becoming more and more human with the passing time somewhere, does hint that he could very well impregnate a human as well.
Give me that.
Sure. How do you want it? Broken leg?
Is Chucky simply a possessed doll or a practitioner of voodoo? Well, I suppose so. I mean, that's how Chucky became the killer doll he is in the first place. It was the 9th day of November in the year 1988 when Detective Mike Norris was chasing down the 30-year-old Charles Lee Ray. Mr. Ray had recently attempted a robbery, but the job went south, and the cops pursued Charles and his friend Eddie. While Eddie manages to escape to the getaway van, Charles himself was shot by Detective Mike. Faintly wounded and with nowhere else to go, Charles stumbles upon a toy store and went inside to breathe his last breath. However, he had a voodoo amulet called the Heart of Damballa, which he transferred his soul into, a doll from the good guy line. Detective Norris followed Charles, only to find his dead body, but the soul transfer had already been completed. The following day, a woman named Karen purchases the Chucky doll and presents it to her son, Andy. Karen leaves for work that night, leaving her friend Maggie to babysit the boy, and Maggie becomes the first victim of Chucky's wrath, whom the evil doll hits with a hammer and she falls out of the window to her death. And from that moment onwards, stopping Chucky was nearly impossible. Throughout the movie, Chucky makes in his singular agenda to transfer his soul into Andy's body, and this scene continues in the rest of the franchise, at least until he embraces who he is. Yet in The Curse of Chucky, the doll manages to create several others like him. Furthermore, Chucky knows the chants that activate the Amulet of Damballa, something which, according to the movie, is used in voodoo magic. So, yeah, Chucky is quite capable of performing all that voodoo crap. Interestingly, it does seem that Chucky had managed to instill this knowledge in his offspring, which is how he was able to bring her dear parents back to life. Chucky and his robot supervillain-like powers. With artificial intelligence like ChatGPT and Google's Bard, it is evident that AI is the future. While it solves as a plethora of problems, one could not shy away from the fact that such a powerful tech raises equally powerful questions about its ethical use. For instance, in 2018, researchers at the Massachusetts Institute of Technology developed an AI that came to be known as the world's first psychopathic AI. The system was trained using image captions from a subreddit that was dedicated to horror and gore, leading to its dark and sinister output. But the goal of the software was to demonstrate the potential dangers of the unethical use of AI. Interestingly, the 2021 reboot of Chucky follows a similar path and gives Chucky powers of artificial intelligence, as well as the power to control or possess technology. In the reboot, the killer doll is depicted as a walking, talking manifestation of the Internet of Things, a being that is able to control several pieces of technology, like cars and other dolls. Interconnectedness of these processed machines is enough to leave many with anxiety and horror. According to the show, Calsan Corporation created the nefarious dolls called Buddy dolls when a disgruntled employee wanted the destruction of the company. He deactivated the safety features of the doll before committing suicide. As fate would have it, the doll reaches Andy, who learns of the doll's murderous nature. He tells his mother about it, but she refuses to believe him. Andy and his mother Karen go to a mall, where Chucky begins to hijack numerous toys and other Buddy dolls like himself. Calsan Corporation had programmed the dolls with AI that was supposed to understand the behavior of the owners and customize themselves accordingly to provide the best experience. However, since Chucky did not have his safety protocols active, he became extremely dangerous and ultimately evolved a personality of his own. By the time he reached his full intelligence, he was capable enough to manipulate Chuck to go into isolation and convert the entire mall into one elegant and deadly death trap. However, I must admit that Chucky was not really doing this because of pure evil intentions, but his actions were driven for the love of his own power, or at least the assertion of such power to others. Clearly, Chucky adds more meaning than is required to the world's smart doll and becomes something of a Megan from the recent Gerald Johnson movie that starred Gina Davis in the title role. What are the ways that you can finish Chucky off, at least temporarily? Well, to say the least, Chucky has come back to life more times than several horror icons. In the first movie, he fights Andy's mother and a couple of cops. In the end, he's burnt down and the killer doll loses a leg and an arm, but that doesn't kill him. Even being repeatedly shot and beheaded doesn't put an end to the doll's life. The final blow comes when Detective Mike shoots Chucky in the heart. But of course, he was hired in the second movie as well, and he resurrects when the company that made the first good guy dolls recreates Chucky to prove that their dolls were harmless. But that doesn't end too well for anyone, as Chucky makes his way back to Andy, who is now living in a foster home because Karen had been sent to a mental institution after the events of the first film. But in the end, Andy's foster sister kills Chucky by inflating his head to the extent that it explodes. But Chucky came back to life when the company decided to recycle the old dolls. Chucky once again resurrects and comes to haunt poor Andy, who was studying at the Kent Military School. This time around, Chucky was shredded into bits and pieces. But as I mentioned earlier, Tiffany fixed the doll. So you see, no matter what, Chucky manages to return one way or another, which brings me to my next entry in this list.
It's showtime!
Why is it so difficult to kill Chucky? But this raises another question. Why is it so difficult to kill the doll? Well, for starters, Chucky is neither merely an evil doll created by voodoo magic, nor is he a manifestation of a serial killer's soul, but he's a blend of both of these things. As a creation born out of evil magic, Chucky is a supernatural being that's capable of resurrection even after it's killed, and is capable of performing voodoo itself. Clearly, this makes the doll quite powerful. Secondly, Chucky was a serial killer in his human life, right? So that makes it evident that the doll he possesses would also have several serial killer tendencies in it. After all, the doll was a manifestation of a serial killer's soul, and these guys and girls are known to commit a plethora of murders before getting caught. And hell, some of them, like the Zodiac killer, don't even get caught.
Yay, but dying is such a bitch.
But can he really be killed? And now it is time to address the elephant in the room. Or maybe the video, on second thoughts, that'd be the baby elephant. Anyone who has watched the films or the show would end up questioning that if Chucky cannot really be killed via a shot through the heart, a gruesome head explosion, a decapitation, or even having his body shredded, how exactly can one kill the serial killer doll? Well, one thing that's established by these means of killing is that you can't just kill the doll by dismembering it. It is much like the Warrens explained in Conjuring when they asked why they didn't just destroy Annabelle. The film's doll was simply a vessel, and sometimes it was better to keep the genie in the box. Likewise, it would make more sense to keep Chucky locked away in some high-security prison rather than destroying his body. So, in the sad chance that Chucky comes knocking at your door or your ex gives you the doll, the best way forward would for you to somehow sever the doll into multiple pieces and hide the pieces in a place that no one would find them. You know, somewhere like Mariana Trench or space. I mean, if you don't do that, some crazy lover of Chucky will ultimately sew the doll back. And you will be gone before I say goodbye to anyone. And if you've got some other ingenious ideas about finishing off Chucky for good, well, let us know. It'd be great to read them in the comments.